In this lecture we talked about J-frames, J-panels, J-buttons, and how we can use these built-in functions to actually display windows to our users. So just to recap what each one was, J-frames are the windows in which everything happens. So this is a J-frame, or the equivalent of a J-frame. It's the entire application. J-panels are little sections within each of the windows. So each of these could be considered a separate J-panel. And J-buttons are obviously the buttons within. So when we're creating J-frames, we essentially just create them as though we were doing something like this. And Java will ask us to import the J-frame from the Swing library. And that will add this import line to our project for us. I'm going to change this J-frame to an asterisk because we're going to want to import multiple things. So we're going to want to import J-panels and J-buttons as well. So the first thing that we're going to want to do with our new J-frame is to actually set a size for it. There are a lot of different properties and methods that we can access through the J-frames. You can take the time to look at those yourself. We're just going to set the size of this one though. And it's measured in pixels, just like you would expect with many programs of this type. Most programming languages work in pixels rather than anything else. So now we've set the size of this, the next thing we're going to do is to actually display it. When a frame is created, it's not actually visible. You have to actually set it visible yourself. And that's because it's not efficient to display the actual frame and then add to it. The idea is that you will add everything to the frame after you've created it and then just display it the one time. So if we display this now, or if we run this program, we're going to get this frame pop up. So the next thing that we can do is we can set a title for our window. If we run this now, you can see in the top left corner we have this YouTube title. Now one point as well is that you'll notice that I've just had to terminate the program manually. Java will allow you to have multiple windows open at the same time. Having multiple windows open is possible within a program. And so by default Java leaves that behavior turned on. But what we want to do is for when the window closes, we want it to actually end the program for us so that we don't have this invisible process running in the background, which we then have to terminate later. So the way we do that is to add an event listener to our frame. On the window adapter, it's important that we set this to the right thing. We need to select this import window adapter java.awt.event. There are plenty of other options, but this is the one that we need to actually select. So next up we need to tell Java that we're actually only adding a new event to the closing event. And to do this we just type public void And we will also need to import the actual window event as well. So rather than having these multiple imports, I'm going to again replace these with just an asterisk. And now when we run our program, it works fine, and when we close the program as well, it will automatically stop the program running for us. The next thing we're going to do is to add a new panel into our window. And this is going to, as I mentioned before, it's going to help us lay out where our different elements are going to be. But it's also important that we actually set up the frame layout so that we can display our panel. Now I'm just going to use a flow layout here, but there are obviously other layout options available. And we're basically just going to copy this line across and set the panel to use a flow layout as well. Finally, we're just going to add this panel into our frame. Now if you run our program, you're not going to be able to actually see any difference because the panel is entirely invisible at the moment. But what we can do is we can add buttons to our panel, which is what we're going to do next. And just like with the actual window, we can type the name of the button in here when we're first instantiating it. And we're going to add this straight into our panel so that we don't have to worry about that later on. Now the final thing that we're going to do in this tutorial is to add an event to this button. I mean, at the moment we can run this and we will see our button is added on in the middle of the screen, but right now it doesn't do anything. So let's add an event to that button so that we can actually do things with our new button. Now the process is actually very similar to when we added an event listener to the window. So I'm just going to skim through this very quickly. And this is where we actually type our codes that we want to perform. And so if we run this program now, when we click me, we're going to get an actual message down in the console. As I say, we can do anything else we want to do in this block of code. We can call other methods, we can call other windows, new programs, anything that we want. But this is only a very basic example.